I have a first to 20. I have a first to 20. I played with Devil XXX, Devil Triple X. South American player. Used to have a B, but the lobby has gotten even more competitive since then. Now he's C ranked. We're still slugging back and forth. I remember he ducked my challenges once because I took enough elo from him once to take his B away, even though I hadn't won the game, which I find very funny. Very, very funny. So let's get into it. So we're gonna go top to bottom, like as if you don't know anything about Puzzle Bobble. So when you play Puzzle Bobble, right? I'm sure if you're like a normal person, you're not like a puzzle person like me, you probably look at all of these groups and you just think that you need to clear them one by one. Well, Devil and I are not going to play like that. In fact, we're gonna play in a completely different way because of a simple truth about this game, which is that aiming is slow, but shooting is fast. And what that means is the following. Oh, we're waiting because I don't know if Devil's there. Yeah. What you're going to see is... Actually, Devil's got like this goofy attack. What you're going to see is that players are going to be trying to discard off of these different groups pretty quick. It looks like Devil's taking a pretty conservative line here. Alright, well, ignore me because I haven't watched this that closely. Oh my god. Oh my god, you can't miss that shot, dude. There's this particular opening that I want to show you. Okay, this is the opening. Here we go. Alright. So, normally, you might look at all these different groups and you're like, I want to clear them one by one, or I want to find drops that are already existing on my board. And all of these different colors and shapes are on the other side of the board. It takes a long time to acquire a target with your pointer because aiming is super duper slow in this game. So what you want to do is you want to do things that are fast, that add a lot of commitment to your board, so that way you can deal a lot of damage really, really fast. And one of the reasons why you want to do that is because if you hit your opponent with multiple lines at a time, it's going to gum up their board and prevent them from making drops that they had worked very hard on achieving. So let's look at how Devil and I go through this sequence right here. So you'll see that as the pieces come down the board, right? As I greed further and further down towards the pointer, the faster I'm able to shoot, because I don't have to wait for pieces to travel as long if they're closer to me. As the board advances down to the pointer, you're not disadvantaged. You're just taking on more risk, and you're getting that, you're accepting that risk in return for faster actions, which allow you to pressure and damage your opponent more effectively. Let's get that off the screen real quick. But you'll see that I didn't actually deal enough damage to my opponent in a single attack because this stem right here is still available. Ideally, when you attack your opponent and you're developing these large drops, you want to hit them in such a way that it prevents them from realizing the benefits of their risk. You'll notice that Devil has built this like horizontal shape here across the board. And the reason that he's done this is because as pressure comes in, it wants to glue onto your board. But if it's all glued onto your board, are you planning on releasing this on YouTube? Yeah. Yeah, that's the plan. As damage arrives onto your board, it gets gummed onto your board, and then you'll have to clear it bit by bit. But if the damage arrives and it lands on your drop over here, you know, you got these pieces that arrive this damage over here, then you can just send it right back to your opponent. So in other words, by attacking into this structure that Devil made, I've actually helped him, because Devil is able to return it back to me. And the way that the damage works in this game is that the larger your drop is, it actually increases the amount of damage sent exponentially. Or not exponentially, but in a non-linear manner. So he's not going to send just 6 bubbles to me if he drops this. He's going to send probably about a line, which is many more than that. And he didn't have to put all those orbs there. I put them there for him. So sometimes when you're accepting risk, you actually, when you create a risky drop like that, you are actually able to tank and send or defend yourself as well as attack your opponent. But you do accept more risk, because if your opponent sent you like 3 lines, you might not get to that drop soon enough. Now, if you're looking at these long shapes that Devil keeps on making, like this, right? And you know in your heart of hearts that he's not guaranteed to get these oranges in his piece queue. He's not guaranteed to get these blues in his piece queue. But by playing in a super fast manner, by shooting into this shape over and over again, as fast as he can, he's going to draw many more pieces. And the more pieces that he draws, the more likely that he's going to get one of these 2 colors. So you see that by taking a risk in terms of his board position, he's actually able to diminish the risk of not drawing the colors that he needs. And also, by having these multiple triggers, if I send him garbage, that fills up these spots, he still has a secondary stem right here that will allow him to make this drop still. Let's look at some more footage here. All right. So you'll see in this is a pretty typical like bottom board. Oop, I went way too far here. Where were we? Holy shit. This game moves so fast. Do you have any idea? Oh, brother. I feel like I've totally lost my place. Oh, here it is. Right. So, when you're in a bottom board position like this, you see it on the right side. When you're at this bottom board position and you receive a piece that does not match what's on your board, you cannot, you can't make any pairs. So I can make a pair with these 2, right? But I didn't have any action on this blue. In order to keep my board flexible, in order to present drops, I need to attach it to wherever I can drop it very quickly. And so what that means is that I'm usually going to be sending those pieces adjacent to targets that I've already made. So in this case, this black pair. Or I could have put it right here where it's able to be dropped immediately. Sometimes I like to develop one side of my board pretty far, because the more that this portion of the board gets developed, the harder it is to make shots across your entire board. So I really would like to develop one of my sides instead, but it's very important that you don't develop both sides of your board. Because if you have pieces that come all the way down here and pieces that come all the way down here, then two things can happen. One is you won't be able to make bank shots anymore because it'll glue onto the board. And the other thing is that if you enter into a situation where you need to make a clear to live, but both of these are at the bottom, then any amount of lethal damage you can't defend yourself against. So it's very important that you don't do both sides, and that you remember that in order to downstack your board from a position like this, you're going to need to discard in a place that you're able to immediately able to clear. Welcome, Alex Alchemy. I hope you're having a wonderful day. We're playing through some footage with a strong player that I played on Fightcade not too long ago. Let's see how I get out of this situation, if I do. I don't have this set memorized, I won't lie to you. But I've managed to dig myself out. I find a great drop, and now Devil's in a terrible position. So let's see how Devil got here. So I feel like it was this yellow drop that really precipitated this for him, right? Ooh, that's pretty rough. So you'll see in this area, he put this purple here, and if he had put this purple here instead, then he would defend this side of the board from incoming garbage. He'd be able to downstack a little more effectively, and he'd also be able to develop this orange trigger right here. So Alex, the dip switches on, or if you want to play, if you don't want to watch the like game over animation all the time, players will hit F2 and then change the dip switches, the soft dips, in order to make it like FD3 or FD5. And that causes the detector to give one game to both players. That's why there's a score discrepancy. So Devil discarded in kind of a weird place. If he draws a blue here, then he's only going to be able to get these two, and his shot over here is blocked off. But also, like, remember, at this point in the game, he needs to throw as many pieces as possible because he needs to draw yellow here in order to like live. He doesn't really have a way out of this other than drawing yellow. Ooh, this is pretty rough. Had he put that purple over here, he would have been able to work on this shape, but now he has this red stem that he's really struggling with. Did he draw multiple reds? No. No, he might have just been dead here due to the pressure. All right, so you see again. You see again that because I'm greeting so fast on center board, I'm able to make commitments that allow me to get huge drops that my opponent will not be able to get, while also maintaining all of these big shapes in the middle of my board. So because I'm greeting all the way down here, all of this stuff, all this good stuff in here, I'm going to keep. Meanwhile, Devil has to get rid of them piecemeal in order to develop any of these drops. I don't have to do that. I get to just make my own drops. And it's because of wanton greed. And you might think like, wow, you know, like that's a lot of risk. Your opponent's going to send garbage that's going to stop you from getting at it. Well, not really. And you'll see why. Because I built my greed with a bunch of redundant drops, right? I have this target, I have this target, and I have this target. So even if garbage arrives here, I'll still be able to get this guy. And even if garbage arrives here, 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 or maybe I don't draw the colors, I'll still have this target in order to trim off this shape and prevent garbage from killing me here. Because as we get closer and closer to the bottom of the playfield, right, my opponent technically only has to send 2 consecutive 1-drops for garbage to arrive here and potentially here and end the game. So always having a way, always having an out by having multiple redundant stems is what's going to defend my board from my opponent's incidental little combos and stuff building up here. And in the meantime, I can build pressure. I don't have to, after I'm done with all of these drops, after I'm done with this, my board is still full of gas, right? It's full of really great stuff. And I'll have that, and my opponent will have nothing. I do have a situation developing here. And that is that I missed a pretty critical shot, right? I really wanted that red to land right here. And I overshot it, and it landed here. Now, when you're playing this game, you really need to play as fast as possible, right? Part of the risk reward of this game, part of the risk reward is the risk that you take on from playing a little too quickly. But if you play too slowly, then your opponent might be able to overwhelm you with the amount of value that all of their actions are able to get. So you sort of have to strike a good balance between all of the things that you want to do and the possibility of failing them. And you might be like, I can't play this game because I can't possibly make any of the incredibly good shots that strong players are capable of making. But the truth is that at all levels of play, players are making these kinds of errors every single time, because these kinds of errors are indistinguishable from normal greeting. I probably would not necessarily make the choice that I made, putting that red in that spot, but it is pretty straightforward how that juices the overall red clear in the future, right? By committing to my board, I'm still increasing its value, even though my risk here, the danger to my person is pretty extreme, right? Because I don't know how many pieces I'm going to go through down here before I actually draw the red that I need. So in that spirit, we're going to start a whoopsie counter for every dumb error that we see on screen, right? Because I really want to emphasize to you, when you're playing this game, if you want to get into it, you want to enjoy it, that at all levels of play, players are making horrible, game-ending errors. And it's part of learning, learning to play quick, improving your aim. All of those things come with making mistakes. And you're going to see it. You're going to see it in my footage. You're going to see it in B rank footage. You're going to see it in A rank footage. It's just part of the game. And I encourage you to keep playing through those mistakes, because I think you'll find that the game's a lot of fun, personally. So my opponent sends a huge drop. I finally draw my red, but I have... Oh, what was that? Another oopsie? Yeah, I wanted to clear... I sure did want to clear this red drop on the left side, didn't I? Whoopsie. We're gonna keep doing this. I promise. We're gonna keep doing this. And now I'm dead for it. I'm dead for a number of reasons, but that definitely did not hurt. When you're attacking your opponent with all of these different things, it's actually kind of funny. You might think that like, oh, I need to send a line all of the time in order to interrupt my opponent. You just don't know what your garbage is going to look like for your opponent. And sometimes a single piece of the wrong color in the wrong place is all that it takes to spiral your opponent's board. And so making sure that you hit all of those drops all of the time, like consistently, is a part of strong play. So on this board, I think we're just going to cash in all of these drops. Yeah. Because we would love to start, we're reading our board. Both of us are reading our board and trying to think of the best value that we can get out of it. And so by clearing out the center board, now we are developing these drops. I would love to get this black drop, so that way I can develop this as a greed. I also have over here this yellow target, and we could also continue moving down this way. In a similar vein, Devil's got something similar going on. He's got this yellow group, and he's got this purple group. After he clears this purple group, and maybe even this yellow group, it's actually not impossible for him to hit this bank shot and then take this purple up here, just like that. So that's the logic behind this board. We're going to read a bunch of different boards together, and we'll think about how we're going to talk about how we're going to think about these boards, not just in terms of like clearing them, but also, you know, like the situation that the boards represent. We always have symmetrical starts in Puzzle Bobble. So we have and we also start with the same piece queue, but they diverge fairly quickly. So a consequence of this is that we have, at the beginning of the game, we have a pretty good idea of what our opponent is capable of. So we know we have a rough idea of what kind of greeds are going to be safe or worth going for, because we know that our opponent is capable of sending X or Y amount of pieces. So in this case, we had a bunch of big centerboard clears early on, which meant that if we had started a greed, our opponent could probably immediately glue it up by just popping the two initial centerboard clears, which is why both of us went for it, because we knew that the only way to defend our board was to clear them. Now I'm developing the centerboard clear. I really would have loved for this red to have landed like here or here or here, and instead we got it right here, which is really not great, because we would love to drop all of this from this black stem. We have our green piece coming up, so instead we're going to take it right here, and then we'll have to work on this black group later. That is what we like to call a bona fide oopsie. A bona fide whoopsie. A little fucky wucky, as they say. So we've trimmed off a lot of that greed. We're starting a brand new. We have redundant triggers on this right side black group. We juiced to clear. I don't think that was intentional, but again, okay. Again, some whoopsies are indistinguishable from a greed. So I want to call attention to a situation right here. So you see, I started this red group on the left side. These little pair of cherries right here, right? And what's great about building a shape like this is that as my opponent sends garbage, it's going to defend against basically anything. So if garbage arrives here, 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 if it arrives at any one of these three locations, I can immediately drop and return it by popping this red group. So by leaving targets scattered around my board in different places, just like this black group, I can actually protect myself and send it back to my opponent and annoy the hell out of them, punish them for trying to interact with me. And of course, you'll notice that I didn't have a whole lot of action on these pieces, these blue and yellow and orange pieces. But I'm able to simply discard them as part of my drop in order to advance my position and start working on stuff deeper in my board. And it's going to cost my opponent the game. Okay, so here we have a pretty funny situation. We have truly a phenomenal drop right here. This huge yellow shape. It's tremendous. If you pop this, it's almost certainly going to send about a line, and then you're going to get this left side drop that starts. It doesn't quite develop because of it's got like a weird stem, right? It's going to be connected in this sort of jumble of pieces. So what we would rather do is we have to make a decision here. Do we want to pop this yellow group and send all of this to our opponent, or do we want to save it and play a little bit of tanky sendy? And I think that tanking it, from my perspective here, as I'm commenting on this, I actually feel like it would be better to tank. Let our opponent pop this yellow group, and I'm going to keep my yellow group. And the reason is because I can start working a greed off of this. I'm going to clear this right here, and then I can start working off of this shape to defend my access to it. And then I can also, after I clear this red shape, I could also start developing triggers off of these pieces right here. So it's not always to your advantage to pop every large group early on. You want to spend some time thinking about how you're going to interact with them, how you're going to develop a greed off of them. In this case, I've decided to pop my yellow group ahead of my opponent. So what does that mean for me? Knowing that my opponent has kept this yellow group. If they keep this yellow group, and look how much access they have to this yellow shape. They can attack here. They can attack here. They can attack here. They could start to clear off of some of these shapes in order to get into it. So they have a lot of opportunities to get more access on top of the access that they already have. And because of the size of the shape, they can greed anywhere they want. And they can receive damage anywhere they want. And they can probably do okay. Which means that over here, this player is going to have to find a lot of pressure, going to have to send multiple lines in order to block off all access and prevent them from getting this drop. So we're going to see if I manage to achieve that. I don't think so, because as you get further back, as you get to the top board, you're not advantaged. You're not. You're actually, it takes longer for the orbs to travel, the bubbles to travel. And as you get further away from the pointer, the distance between pointing at any particular point is going to decrease. In other words, if you're targeting any of these spaces from down here, the less you have to move in order to target them. Whereas if you're targeting a space right here, you have to move further and further in order to directly target those things. And what that means is that if you're unfamiliar, you have to rethink how you're going to aim the deeper into your board you're going, and the amount of time that it takes for any given bubble to arrive back here is going to increase, which means that even if I'm greeting quite aggressively, moving down here, it's going to take me longer to develop that drop than if my opponent was developing a similar drop down here. And as garbage arrives, garbage does not arrive in like a predictable manner. It's going to go here. It's going to repeatedly target the high points of my board. It's never going to land here. It can only land here or over here or here or in here. So it's going to start, as damage arrives, it's going to start creating these voids. In fact, it could even arrive here, and you can see it could potentially develop all of these weird voids in the middle of my board where I have no access, no ability to build drops, and all sorts of bad stuff. So I would actually say I'm a little disadvantaged on the right side by being so far down in my board. I don't know if I agree with this greed right here, but you can see that my opponent was not able to really capitalize on their position. And now I have a pretty great attack lined up. Their right side access, so remember, I don't know if you remember, but there was access to this yellow group on this side, and they've lost it. They don't have an easy way. They're going to have to clear both this purple and red group in order to get access to the side. And they would probably have to spend that red on this drop first in order to live. So now that they're bothering with this drop, in order to get access on the left side, I'm queued up to send them another line. And we're going to immediately just destroy their position, right? So now, when they had planned to use that yellow group to drop their whole board, because of my repeated pressure, they're all glued up on the right side. That yellow drop that they had saved, hoping to tank and send, it didn't work out. And now they're in trouble. In fact, they're going to lose this game for sure. So tanking and sending in this game, while very strong, in fact, I encourage you to consider it and do it often. It requires you to like constantly manage that drop and be conscientious of clearing up those things. If we go back to this, in order to make this yellow drop work, in order to make this yellow drop really work, he would have to cut this shape. He would have to cut this shape here. He would have to delete this red group in order to ensure that this whole yellow drop will drop all this shit. And what was he choosing to do here? Yeah, he prunes that. This black piece right here, this really stings. Because he would, if I were him, I would be 100% be looking to trim this. That way I could maintain access. So he gets this blue piece, and then he gets this red piece. All right. So had he dropped that red piece here, had he dropped that red piece on this side right here, he probably would have been fine. But instead he drops it here. We're gonna increment the whoopsie counter. For bad decision making, not for misses. Let's see when he gets another red again. Oh my god. Okay, so he put the purple in a way that actually blocks off access to this red group, because with this yellow here, he actually needed the red to land here. But because he put a purple there, he's no longer able to shoot here. He could have put this purple here in order to develop another drop. You could have also put that purple here in order to drop it later. But he absolutely needed to clear this red group in order to drop the left side of his board. And now, by attacking on the left side, he doesn't get a drop at all. In fact, he dies. Brutal. But this is the kind of decision making you're going to have to make really, really fast. But it's also fun. Like you can absolutely ruin your opponent's day. He had a tough shot there in order to make a drop there, but you know, no big deal. Devil is taking a much better greed here. See, we were talking about how developing these greeds, this like big umbrella shape, is going to prevent damage from arriving and hitting your board, and then you'll just drop it, right? So watch what happens. This is Puzzle Bobble 1, yeah. So now he rebuilds it, and you see he actually sends 2 pieces. He actually builds another target from this incoming garbage right here. He builds another target, but he can still drop here. Oh, he's really deep. Oh, he doesn't have an exit strategy. Oh my god. All right, we're incrementing the whoopsie counter. Because he was so deep in the hole on this greed. So why would somebody want to do this? Why would a Puzzle Bobble player get into a play pattern like this where they make this big drop? And that's partly because I think he would like to continue greeting because I'm sending all these little 1s and 2s drops. So he feels pretty secure. But the issue is that the way garbage arrived, I told you that garbage arrived in an unpredictable fashion. It tends to scan from one side to the next. So in other words, the first damage arrived here, and then the next damage arrived here. And the issue with that is that he's got a push. So this is a mechanic of Puzzle Bobble. It's designed to get you off of the cabinet. If you, as players place pieces, every now and again the screen is going to push down another line of bubbles, which means that even though you would be safe from damage, right? So like this damage right here is not lethal. In fact, I would have to get another drop to make it lethal. He's dead to a push here. Brutal. In fact, he just now drew the red that he needed to save himself. He fell into that greed because aiming is slow. Devil finding a great drop left side. I have some pretty good defense, so I'm looking pretty okay. I made this green group on the right side. I made this green group over here because I could have developed this, but it would actually block off access to this blue group. And I would love to clear that. I'm actually going to try to land here, I think. If this green is here, it would also block access to this. Anytime you have a gap where it's like there's a piece here and there's a piece here, or if you have like you have a piece here and a piece here and you want to shoot through the gap, you can make these shots. When the bubble is traveling, it's smaller. It shoots a ray that collides with things, and it's actually smaller than the bubbles on the screen, which means that any of these one wide gaps you can in theory shoot through. But it is quite fucking difficult to do. So I discard that green on the right side, so that way I can get access into this blue group. This is a really difficult shot. I don't know if I get it. No, I actually bounced it off the wall instead. That makes sense. Hemming and hawing. I don't get the drop that I wanted to, and I'm dead for it. Typical. Let's increment that old whoopsie counter. We've actually probably missed some whoopsies. I think I was feeling a little rattled at this point. And so I didn't quite go for like the linear greed here. When I was looking at this and I saw this yellow group right here, I wanted to clear this because I have a nice horizontal drop developing right here. And I would love to start worming my way out here, and then I will cut the stem right here or here. Unfortunately, I have some really awkward shapes developing. It's going to take me a long time to get to. I have a bunch of really redundant stems that I can cut. And I take a moment here. I take a moment right here. You see, I had this purple here. And I could have put it here. And the reason why I didn't is because I am 1, 2, 3. You can't see it. My screen doesn't go far enough. I have 3 different... it would take 3 lines from my opponent, or 2 and a push, in order for him to kill me from an attack. There's no way he has a drop like that, right? So if I put a purple here, and I built this purple drop myself, if I put it there, then I basically spent all of my actions doing nothing. So this is the dark side of APM, right? It's not always about the fact that you can perform a lot of actions really fast. So we mentioned earlier, aiming is slow, shooting is fast. Well, what are the actions? What are the actions that you are actually getting? The actions that you are purchasing with your action points, your action economy, to affect your board and your opponent's board. By clearing this purple group, I get nothing. I get actually nothing. So instead, I'm going to greed on this green shape over here. I have a great drop here if I find a red. But even if I don't, I can start building a green trigger right here. In fact, I have it in my piece queue, which is great for me. And as you can see, I also even reflected garbage from my opponent back to them, because I had the discipline to maintain multiple drops at once, even though it required me to commit more to my board and take on more risk. So this is a certified whoopsie. I don't know if you noticed, chat. So this black orb, I would have loved for this black orb to land here, or even here. It would have been fine. But instead, where does it go? Boo! That's a real issue, actually, because had that landed in the right place when damage arrived, we probably would have been in better shape. Instead, this damage arrives in such an awkward place that the only way for me to drop this shape over here is to start clearing off this blue, which is just awful. I think instead I clear this orange and then I clear the blue like this. I kind of can't remember. I have to trim shit first. Yeah, that's funny. Oh, am I dead here? I'm so dead here. That's a heartbreaker. See, that's what I was telling you. Even though you might think pressure is constantly sending lines to obstruct potential drops. So like if you send a line here, it would probably kill this purple drop. it would potentially kill this. Actually, it wouldn't kill this blue drop, but it would definitely kill this red drop. Your pressure is also continuously sending these small little pokes every now and again, because as your opponent gets closer to the line, it could randomly fall in one of those spots, and then you'll be in serious trouble. By which I mean you'll lose, like, immediately. Oh, we didn't increment the whoopsie counter. You know we got to do that. I send over the drop to my opponent. It makes this shot. It does let them get more on this greed, but now they have to make a really difficult shot into this blue group right here. This red is slightly problematic because there's more than one angle to get into this blue group. But one of them overlaps. Well, no, maybe it doesn't. Never mind. I'm a liar. But either way, he's too shallow. We got to increment the whoopsie counter. You know it. That's potentially a game-losing whoopsie, actually. Like, unironically. Okay, he manages to get it out of there. And you can see that even though he sends this drop, right? So he sends almost a line, and a bunch of it lands on the right side, and then I'm able to just send it right on back to my opponent. That's the power of greed. That's the power of extending your board out to catch garbage, intercept it, and send it on back to your opponent. I am in dire straits here. So this is an error. This is we'll increment the whoopsie. This is a pretty niche thing, but when you're at bottom board, when all you have is like down here, your pointer can only directly shoot at these 4 places. If this space is occupied, you can't shoot at these 2 spaces. And vice versa, and also the opposite is true. If this space is occupied, you can't directly shoot at these 2 spaces. You can, of course, if you want to, you can target any of the spaces below those, and Puzzle Bobble will let you, provided that you have a valid clear there. Which means that you're not... So, like, if you had a pair here, you could target the space directly below them, and if you have a valid clear, you'll survive. So just bear in mind, keeping these center 4 clear can enhance your survivability sometimes. All right, we're greeting. Great drop. And my opponent sending it back over. I do have some gas, though. Oh, well, look at this whoopsie. The classic. So we would have loved for that blue piece to have taken out this shape right here. That would have been great. But instead, now we're in a terrible position because we have to either clear this purple or we have to clear this black in order to get access to this drop again. So you'll see I wanted to greed on this black shape on the left, but because damage is arriving, anytime I put any piece into... If I have damage arriving, and I want to put any piece in here, then any of this garbage, literally any of it, is life-threatening. So instead I put it here. Because if as this garbage arrives, it's going to target this right here, and I'll live. Which is pretty good. I like living. You should like living too. Though my opponent does have the double tap, you know, the big juicy follow-up. All right, we're sending out the counter pokes. My opponent has a great counter punch here. You see we're making this big centerboard spire because we would love to send some of this back, but unfortunately, because it's so far down, we're taking a lot of risk. We'll die. I opened up this yellow. So did my opponent. And now I'm trying to protect that yellow by greeting down here. I decide to take it. I'm actually in a slightly better shape. My opponent has covered up all of their drops. Okay, so my opponent did something. So this is a kind of shot that you're going to have to make every now and again. So he's got a purple, and he's going to fire that purple here. But he actually can't directly shoot at it because this green is in the way. So what he does in order to make this shot is, you can imagine that there's a pivot point on this green piece right here. If you hit the pivot exactly on the money, then the piece is going to slide to the right. In Puzzle Bobble, there's a right side bias to all of your shots. So in order to make this shot, what you have to do is you literally target this point right here. Like, here's the pivot, and then you're going to aim a little bit to the left. So that way, you'll miss this green shot, you'll hit this green orb, and the game is like, yo, you're over that pivot line. Well, that means that I'm going to move this piece to the left for you, champ. Now watch this. Watch him take the shot. Right? It looks like it's going to land. It hits the green, and then it scoots on over. Watch how this piece moves. See, it scoots on over into the place. And you're going to have to make shots like that. Learning how to do that is an important skill. It's going to open up a lot of different ways for you to make drops and make clears. And you just have to remember, it's actually slightly easier to make that shot on the right side because there's a right side bias to the piece moving. All right, so now we have this humongous red shape centerboard. And we have to make a decision pretty early on, actually, about whether or not we're going to take it. My opponent gets an opportunity to take it early because they cleared a shape in front of it, whereas I got kind of a fucking mess here. But the truth is that because I was building multiple stems, right? Because I have these multiple stems on my board, I'm able to just send it right on back to my opponent. Garbage is actually pretty kind in this game. So provided you're on point and you're always making your shots, you can tank and survive a lot of shit. I do want to call attention to this one shot right here. So I really lucked out. This shot lands here. But given how far I'm aiming, it could have landed here. If it landed there, I almost certainly would have lost this match. But instead, it landed exactly in a great way for me to send it off, discard it off of my board. When you're playing in a bottom board position, you're going, or in general, you'll often want to stick stray pieces on the edges of, like, in really long lines, so that way you can just drop them rather than committing them to your board and blocking up access to your drops. So now, by clearing those greens out of the way, because I waited, because I by circumstance mostly, not by planning, I was able to preserve this huge red shape. And now, as a consequence, I got to drop my whole board. And my opponent, who's been absorbing all of my little pokes and stuff, their board is trashed. So when they receive this drop, they're receiving 3 lines. They're just dying. It's great. It's great. As a general rule, I feel like it's pretty strong to to send second in this game. Provided that you live. If you live, it's great. If you die, then you get a whoopsie, right? You just get a whoopsie. Okay, so one of the things you'll see stronger players do is there's nothing. I could have started developing some drops off of these shapes. I could have put this purple here, and then I could start developing a greed down. But if I did it that way, then if I started a greed here and then worked my way here, it would be pretty likely that I would lose access to the drop here, because my angle to bounce shots is pretty shallow, and all it would take is like 1 or 2 pieces of bad garbage to block access. So I really don't want to greed like this. And also, if I greed like this, if I make this shape, I also don't have a shot in this way. I would actually hit the tip of whatever it is I'm trying to greed on. So rather than doing that, I would rather clear off a lot of this stuff. And what's the way to get the most damage off of this is to juice the clear. So in this case, what I'm going to do is, rather than thinking of this as a 3-drop and then a 3-drop, which is worth nothing, instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this purple here, and then I'll put a purple here. And I'll get a 5 clear, and I think that's worth 2 points of damage. And I could even greed off of this purple shape if I wanted to. That was definitely a whoopsie, I think. Well, it's pretty debatable. Like, that actually worked out pretty well for me. And you look at my opponent's side. My opponent takes a very different line. My opponent, after clearing the purple group, is starting to build an orange drop that he would like to develop a greed off of. But we were talking about garbage. He does not get out of my chat. He doesn't actually get the right colors to build a second drop in here. He has this green coming up, which will be great right here. But unfortunately, all it took was 1 garbage in the right place at the right time to shut this entire shape off. Awful. Brutal. And that's why it's always to your benefit. Even though it might not seem very valuable, you should periodically hit your opponent with small pokes or power clears, because you never know when the garbage is going to interact with your board in this way and absolutely ruin their day. Now, in order to get access to that orange clear, he actually has to clear either the red, or he'll have to clear this and then bank shot in here. That would be cool. I would love that for him. However, even if he clears this shape, if I send garbage again and it lands in this column, he won't have that shot anymore, and then he's right back to where he was, which is awful. Just dreadful. Actually, that is a whoopsie. He greeds here. So he drew the consecutive oranges that he needed. He had this orange here. He could have cleared this, and then he has another orange here, and then he could clear this. Let's add to the whoopsie counter. This is more of a strategy thing than a missed shot. Oh, we're in trouble. Oh, brutal. Alrighty. I got this big yellow shape. I'm kind of curious. I don't think I was shooting. Yeah, I wasn't shooting to clear this yellow shape. So what's going on here is, as much as I would love to just like boom, boom in here, I wouldn't drop anything because we're connected right up here. So in order to drop this whole pattern, what I need to do is I need to clear this orange group right here, and then we'll clear the yellow group, and then we'll be Gucci. But that's probably not going to happen on this match because of the piece queue, which is not our friend. Instead, by taking a piecemeal, we're able to send over pretty persistent pressure to our opponent. How does Devil take this line? You find some pretty cool drops here and there. Oh, see here? He had a whoopsie. If he had this blue, if this blue landed right here, he would have been golden. Because if this blue lands here and garbage arrives, garbage can only land here, here, or way the fuck back here. And so in any of those positions, he would still have access to this green clear. But because this blue lands like up here, up in this nonsense, he's not going to be able to get the drop on the right side that he would want. Yeah, see? And now this garbage, his pressure from his opponent really locks him out. Prevents him from making some of these clears. Wow, we're really deep. Holy shit. So this is what's happening right here, chat. So remember what I said earlier, that aiming is slow, shooting is fast. If I shoot a red here, it's going to land here and then it'll delete this whole shape. But I know that if I hold this position and I keep shooting, I'm going to get a great greed in this corner, and I can just turn my brain off and just hit that button as many times as I can. And that's going to give me a great drop off of this purple shape. Especially, and I'm using my ears here, I'm going to be listening to my opponent play. In fact, because I'm so if I was truly playing in a, you know, brain empty, I am pressing the button. If I'm not, I don't even have to look at my board. I could look at my opponent's board and make a decision on what they're doing. So even though I didn't get any action from doing that, my pointer's in such a great position. See how horizontal this drop is? See how horizontal that is? If garbage arrives and my opponent wants to glue this up, he's gonna have to send at least 2 lines. There's no way he's fucking sending 2 lines off of this. The consequence of this is that I'm in a great position to develop this greed, send it over to my opponent uncontested. And you'll notice the one thing that separates this drop from me and my opponent is that as soon as I got this second black piece, or this third black piece, I realized that I only have one legal cut here. I only have one target. In order to make this drop safer in general, I'm going to need another drop point. And in this case, I want to make it this black trigger. Mostly because this blue is covered up. If this blue wasn't here, I could build a yellow trigger. Or I could, if this yellow was elsewhere, I could perhaps build a blue trigger as well. Building these sort of redundant triggers means that I have a greater chance of drawing my target color to get out of my greed. And I'm also, by playing quickly, you know, I have more opportunities to draw the colors that I need. So in this case, I do have a kind of annoying shot to make. I bank it off the wall, but we're still fine. My opponent's dead. It's great. We're living our best life. You'll notice that my opponent, he draws the black pieces, but he doesn't build the second trigger. He doesn't have the presence of mind to build this other trigger. And so he's going to die for it, right? So as soon as he heard, if he had, wow, thank you for the follow. I don't have the, can't see it with my eyes. Dexter, thank you for the follow. If he had a black piece here and he heard all of that garbage arrive, then he would have a legal shot to drop his greed. That was a really sloppy one. He would have a legal shot to drop this whole greed and send it on back. He could have received garbage down here and sent it on back had he developed his second trigger. So having a little bit of redundancy can be the difference between living and dying. We're actually gonna increment the whoopsie counter for a major strategic error. Pretty typical. I make problems like that all the time, you know. Make problems, make errors. Oh boy. My life is going a little pear-shaped right here. Oh, it's so bad. Oh, chat, it's so awful. It's so painful. So what did we just talk about? We were talking about redundant triggers. This blue belonged way the fuck over here. And now, because I didn't do it, now all of these are in limbo. There's no way for me to drop them. Let's increment that whoopsie counter. So we're discarding heavily. We probably could have built a discard or built a clear on the bottom of the board. But we probably wouldn't have lived because our opponent sent us 2 lines. Not a big deal. This game is kind of high variance. Like, it's just part of the territory. But with that high variance, you know, comes some extremely sick plays. Great shot. So how much of that did I actually build? I built a decent amount of it. So once we got to this shape, you know, you can look at my opponent's board and you can detect pretty straightforwardly that he doesn't have any pressure. He's got a red in the chamber and a black on the way. The best he can do is start discarding. He could actually build a secondary trigger here and then discard the black. And the best that he's got is he could drop that shape in order to send over 3 or 4 pieces, which will do nothing to my board. So rather than have those 3 or 4 pieces land on my board, instead I can develop this greed horizontally and protect this portion of the board from incoming garbage. And then I'll be able to drop it by popping this purple trigger. It is the way that this is set up means that as garbage arrives on my board, the garbage, he'll have to hit multiple lines in order to obstruct access to this purple clear. So even if garbage arrives right here, I still have a bank shot going this way into this purple clear. And I also obviously have this orange drop up here. So I'm very well defended if my opponent sends stuff. But they don't even have that much stuff. So I can spend some time greeting. And I don't make any adjustments to my position because aiming is fucking slow. And shooting is crazy fast. And my opponent just dies for it. GG's. That was a... What even was that? I think I was trying to build a additional blue trigger. And I aimed a little too shallow. And it got in the wrong place. Let's keep going. I probably was trying to pop that blue trigger with that other blue shot. But it didn't really matter whether or not I did. This is one of those things where, like, is that a whoopsie? Sure. I think I was aiming for that blue group. But the truth is that sometimes making an error like that just doesn't matter. It straight up does not matter. You should just keep on hitting the shot button. You want to press the button as many times as humanly possible. Chances are that if you're playing accurately and you're making the right decisions, it does not matter if you occasionally make an error in the spirit of committing more and more pieces to really strong drops. It just doesn't matter. I did miss this shot right here. This orange shot. So remember what we were talking about before? So you'll see I missed the pivot. So I don't need to shoot directly into this hole. In fact, if I try to do that, I'm liable to collide with this green orb. What I want to do is I want to aim for dead center on this yellow one, and then it will just slide right into this hole and then clear this group. But because I was to the left of the pivot point, now this piece is going to just swoosh on over to the left instead. And now that orange drop is no longer possible. Which is not the biggest deal, but it does mean that in order to get access to this shit, I have to either clear this green or this green. And that's going to take forever. All right, now we have another pretty difficult shot. Looks like we're going to try and get that orange shot again, right? You know it. You love it. It's time. Keep on hitting it. And we're trying to defend our left side. I would love to develop this board by being able to attack into here. So in order to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to build a trigger here. And then it would be really cool to build this trigger. I think the garbage does that for me. That way, as garbage arrives, it's going to get stuck on this drop, and then I can just drop it, no problem. And part of doing this is that, or part of defending myself here, is that you'll see I look here and I'm like, I have no action. So even though it's a potentially lethal risk for me to put pieces down in this line, I'm going to discard here because I can discard here and then still have a red drop available to drop this whole shape. That way, if I discard elsewhere on my board, I'm going to obstruct my ability to make these clears, or I'm going to have pieces that are going to be stranded. So if I discard this orange here, it's going to take forever for me to get that off my board, because I'd have to clear either this blue, this red, or this black. But if I discard off of a drop that's already accessible, then I'm able to get it off my board as fast as possible and get more space to survive. I discarded that yellow there because I had a purple in the queue. What's my opponent doing? My opponent is getting screwed. They would have loved to draw a black here. They start developing this drop. They make a great attack. They didn't have to keep developing this left side greed. So, like, as soon as he had built this purple trigger, he no longer needs to put stuff down here. Because if he puts any stuff down here, then he's actually in lethal risk. If he puts this orange here, then it sort of complicates his ability to attack the right side. What does he do? We literally just watched this, but I forgot already. Oh, he attacks deep in, yeah. But had he played a little bit faster, he would have drawn more pieces. I don't know if there's a black in the future queue. Oh, we have the whoopsie of all time. Oh my fucking god. Can you believe this shit? Look at this. So I need to hit this green shape, right? I'm playing as fast as I humanly can. I really need to hit this target, and where do I hit it? Right there. Right fucking there. Look at this. Look at this. This is garbage. But these are the kinds of mistakes that you're gonna make when you're playing Puzzle Bobble. And it's not a big deal. You don't have to be you don't have to have like the aim of the gods, but you do have to have a willingness to take risks and go for it. If you're willing to go for it, you'd be surprised at the shots that you can make. Both me and my opponent are greeding heavily on these green shapes because both of us have identified that if we have a big greed on this green shape and then drop it, the other opponent is almost certainly dead. They're almost certainly dead on board. It doesn't even matter what they have going on. It'll turn all of their drops into garbage and then they die. This sequence is so funny to me. My opponent is dead on board. There's nothing he can do. However, I could be dead on board, but I have a couple shots that I can make in order to do it. We're going to try our first shot here. I need this purple target. I need to clear it. Whoops! Oh, that causes me a certain amount of pain. So had I cleared that yellow target right up here, I would have had great access to different places to target this green group. I would actually argue that this bank shot here is actually way easier than shooting in here. And the reason is that if you're aiming in here, there's a very particular shot you have to make, because if you're a little bit too right, it'll actually ricochet off this wall, and if it touches this orange orb below its center line, then it's actually going to land here, and then you're screwed. Whereas if you shoot it from here, you have the green orb has to land anywhere from here to here. It's actually a much bigger window for you to hit than this one over here. So I really needed to make that yellow shot, and I just did not. And now I have a different green shot that I could make. I have this one. Let's see if I make that one. No, of course not. So now I'm dead on board, which is really funny. However, when it comes to situations like this, it's to your advantage to slow down. this is like one of the only times in the game where it's worth it to slow down. So now I'm 100% dead on board. However, my opponent has been playing through this, right? So they're basically dead on board. So what do? They make a mistake. They shoot. But it doesn't actually do anything. It actually makes their board way worse. And it brings death closer. Had they waited, they would be alive. So when we get to this point, both of us are dead on board. However, my opponent shot a piece just before me. Now, a fact about this game that you may not know is that after about 10 seconds, the game forces you to shoot. After 5 seconds, it starts counting down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then it'll force you to shoot. So if both me and my opponent are in a dead on board situation, then by letting me miss these shots and just not committing to the board, he would have won. But because he kept on shooting and in fact shot one more shot than me, he actually would hit the timer first. So rather than watch that whole animation, he just shoots and just loses. Couple great shots from yours truly. I'm definitely really feeling it. So like none of these shots are like incredibly valuable on their own, but look at the way that it interacts with Devil's board. So he's got like this really he's got this really flat non-committal board. Or I'm sorry, it is actually committal in the sense that he would have to clear all of those unrelated colors in order to find any action. And then garbage arrives on top of it. So his right side is totally buried, right? He has no way to access these clears up here. And he doesn't even have a drop off of this target that he made. He has this red one instead. But nothing on it. So he can't actually attack here. But while he's doing that, I have a couple more greeds. I have a couple of attacks that I can queue up. Right? So he's finally built this red shape over here. He's finally managed to get that so he can swing back. But, you know, in the meantime, I have very similar drops on my own side. So I do want to call attention to so look at where this bubble landed on the right side. You see how it didn't, when it collided with this red shape, it didn't pass this center point. Because it collided with this red orb and it didn't pass the center point, it's going to land on the side, on its front side, on the same side. I'm sorry, on the front, on the same side. So it's going to scoot on back to the previous place. And then I'll get the clear. I'll get the drop. Now, Devil's in kind of a weird spot. He needs to draw a green. This is really awkward. I don't think he has a bank shot here. Oh, he can't anymore. So this shot in here is only theoretically possible. I don't actually know. You have to be like really cracked to make shots like this. Usually the easy one is when it's shaped like here's a piece and then here's a piece and then you're shooting through the gap. Those are usually easier to hit than these ones. I've only seen people do it like maybe once or twice. So he is dead, definitely. I thought he actually had a little bit more in the tank there. Oh, we're greeding. Ooh. So this blue shape, I don't know about that one. I'm definitely incrementing the whoopsie counter on that one. Because I definitely think that blue definitely did not belong there. It definitely would have gone here quite well. But instead it landed here, and now I'm screwed. Well, I'm not screwed. I'm just in a really shitty spot. Yeah. So in order to live here, I had to hit a bank shot like so. That's possible. And then I'd have to hit a blue here, and then I drop this, and then I have to hope that garbage doesn't arrive on the left side. Does garbage actually arrive on the left side? No, I would have lived. Yeah. You know what that means, chat? Hold on. Oh, that's brutal. I see what happened here. Okay. So Devil has, because of the way the garbage arrived, these two different shapes are converging. And he puts the purple in the correct spot, I feel like, but this green bridges here, which is really not what you want, because now even if he pops this green group, he's not going to be able to drop this shape. Had he placed the green here before garbage arrived, then he would have preserved this shape, because garbage could arrive here. This purple's in the way, so it would have, if garbage arrived in this column, it would have landed here, and then he'd still be able to drop the whole shape on this right side with his next green. But instead he bridges the shape, and he winds up in a pretty rough spot. Hey Liz, how you doing? We're running the Puzzle Bobble Clinic. I play a little too much of this game. I won't lie to you. My opponent's in dire straits. But I think he does have the comeback of all time pretty soon. No such thing as too much Puzzle Bobble. I have a pretty great drop coming up. So you'll see I start building, just like before, I start building this greed on the left side to protect all of these additional targets. And also because I don't want this. So it would be utterly catastrophic if this shape bridges to this. If that happens, I'm fucking sunk. So instead, what I want to do is I want to create a little umbrella that will prevent garbage or even my own missed shots from bridging those two shapes. But because garbage arrived, now it's bridged together the whole right side. And now I'm in trouble. We have a pretty cool discard. We were discussing, you know, like bottom board survival, right? So I have this green here. Yeah, if you eventually it will. Eventually, with enough garbage and enough time, your board can basically turn into foam, which is actually in some ways worse than having a solid board. So I don't have any place for this green to go. So in order to prevent making my board worse, I put it here, and then I can just discard it. And I'll send it over to my opponent, and maybe I'll luck out and ruin his day. I'm super dead. All right, so we're both greeting off of this yellow. I don't know if that was the right decision there. Yeah, he starts an unrelated pattern. I guess he can drop them both. And then I'm left with nothing. I have like no gas. Oh, what a weird decision I made. So we do have to make a kind of painful shot here. So we need to hit this right here. So if I had hit just on the left of the midpoint of this green bubble, then the purple will just roll, it'll just swoosh on into the spot. But instead I put it, where did I put it? Awful place. You know what that means, chat? Increment that whoopsie counter. But we're tenacious, we're hanging in there. We're in a little dire straits, but where are we going with this? That was definitely an oopsie. I think I was trying to get into this black shape up here. So shoot up here and then hit this. And then I'd just do it in the future. It's honestly not like, I don't think it impacts the game at all, so I'm not going to bother with the whoopsie counter. This is part of Devil's epic comeback. I don't remember what the final score is. I want to say it's like 18-20 or so. Oh, we're greeding. Do I die here? Oh my god, that's so sad. The way that natural pushes can collude with incoming damage means that even though you feel like you're safe because you don't have anything down here, even though you feel safe, if it combines with a natural push, it means that you have to have both bottom rows clear in order to live. That would have been a pretty epic greed, though. So as I'm reading my board, you notice I have this clear. And if I take that out and then I greed like so, then I have easy places to drop the shape, while also protecting my right side. That's why I would prefer to pick this shape over this drop. Because this drop on the left side sends basically nothing and doesn't progress my board. It gives me access to this blue clear, which is nothing. But clearing this yellow shape gives me a ready-made scaffold to start greeting off of. And literally my first piece is to build the blue trigger. I don't know if I agree with what I just did here. So I'm going to call that a whoopsie for sure. So if this purple landed here, then I would have two triggers. I'd have a purple group and a blue group. But because it landed here, it actually bridges green to the purple. And now I have one trigger, which is the purple. So that's a whoopsie. We'll call it there. But luckily, I don't think it's a game-ending error by far. That is definitely an oopsie, for sure. Oh! Oh, it's so painful. Oh, God. And I win anyway. So this is what I was talking about, chat. Is that by playing quickly, I get more opportunities to draw my trigger piece. So even though I made, let's count, right? We do this. 1. Do I have another one? No, it's just an additional one. So even though I missed on that purple group twice, I actually got 3 bites at that apple in order to win the match. So the fact that you're not able to make the shots that you think that you have to make in order to play this game, you don't have to make them all of the time. I only made it 1 out of 3 times, and it still worked out totally fine for me. So I really encourage you to go for those difficult shots and try and develop. What happened? Oh, that's brutal. So he's building this right side greed. But he... Well, see, the thing is that even if he had built this orange... Well, no, it would have been fine. So he needed to put an orange here. And then as garbage arrived, this incoming orange would have landed here, and this black would have landed here. And then he would have had this orange drop. But now he's locked out of it. Even if he clears this purple group, he would have to still clear all of this shit in order to get at this drop. And in the meantime, the presence of all of this action on the right side of the board prevents him from making a bank shot to go get this other group. He does have it here, but this is very disruptible to incoming garbage. So not like a great long-term position. In fact, literally garbage blocking the left side just arrives right there, proving how like short-term it is. Oh, brutal. So we were talking about as soon as this piece arrived, as soon as this yellow piece arrived, he is no longer able to send pieces in here, which is rough because he needs every possible discard that he can muster in order to get enough draws to find these reds or to find these oranges. It's the only way out of this board position. But rather than playing as quickly as possible, discarding to the left, he actually commits onto his own greed here. And see, he had to greed here, moving this way, in order to draw this red to clear this. But because he greeded directly on in the middle of the trigger, he's now dead, for sure. He would still be in a bad position, even if he had gotten that red discard. But he would have gotten more draws in order to draw the orange that he needed to get out of the situation. Oh, yeah. Oh, this is the action. No! Oh, I felt that deep in my bones. Okay, so this blue is sort of like the harbinger of disaster. If this blue landed here, then I would have a much cleaner shot at this. Instead, what I have to do is I have to do a bank shot, and I have to hit to the right of the pivot point on this orange. If I wanted to shoot directly at it, I would probably be likely to hit this blue, which is why I would prefer a bank shot. So let's see where that green winds up. It's totally in the wrong place. We'll do one of those. I do have a secondary drop, so it's not the end of the world. You can see that because I have redundant triggers, my opponent's garbage 2 of my opponent's garbage is now ready to be sent right on back to my opponent. This red over here, this red over here, I put it like here. It really needed to go here in this vicinity. So that way I would block incoming garbage. It would be connected to this redundant blue and green drop. But instead, now, because garbage can actually arrive here, it bridges the entire group together, and now you're super sad. I look pretty dead. Not gonna lie. No way I get out of this. Okay, thank God. And you see, I'll often be swinging in a way where I don't move my pointer. I just would really love to bury my opponent in my pressure. Pretty dangerous here. Yeah, the combination of an incoming push and a single point of garbage is all that it takes to kill you sometimes. Yeah, sure. This is pretty dorky stuff. My opponent has a slightly better thing going on, which is funny because I feel like the damage really is on my side. I just have to draw a red here, and then I'm Gucci. Oh, I'm dead? Oh. That's so sad. Oh, God, that's so sad. Oh, that's so pathetic. My opponent has a great drop on the left side, but I'm so mad. This is like literally a child's first drop. So, the reason why this happened. So this is a pretty bad whoopsie, but I'll explain to you why this error occurred. And the reason that it occurred is that I'm never looking. I ideally am never looking at where I'm pointing. Instead, what I'm doing is I want to hold up on the control stick to center my pointer. And then I use the amount of time it takes from moving left or right to determine where I'm going. So what happened is that I held up to center my pointer, and then I wanted to tap left or tap right and then shoot the fire button in order to make this clear. However, I pressed the fire button a little too early. So it hits this orange bubble instead, and I get the saddest whiff of my life. And now I'm dead. Love that. Love that for me. Do you see how often I do this sort of like wiggly motion as I'm trying to get the pointer back to the center? It really helps your aim. You really don't want to spend a lot of time staring at your own pointer trying to get action going. You can use your peripheral vision to have a general idea of where it's pointed, and you can use your peripheral vision to tell what color you have in your piece queue, or in the piece after your current active piece. That way you can play faster. Because this game is really about making commitments as fast as possible. And you see, once again, with this greed, I'm building a little umbrella. And I get 3 additional pieces from my opponent's garbage. I get this orange, this blue, and then this yellow right here. I get all of that for free because I was willing to take a risk and move my entire board down. Huge action. now I have, I didn't go for it because I'm a coward. I needed to hit to the left of the center point on this yellow bubble, and then the orange piece would just kind of zoop on in. I can leave this purple group here because if my opponent sends, so like say they discard this black group, if garbage arrives here, if it lands here or here, I still have an easy access on this purple drop to send it back, and then I'll still have the other drop too. So it's not the biggest deal. But I probably should have looked at my opponent's board and then been like, oh, clearly had I seen this drop, I probably would have killed almost immediately. And instead they get some gas, they get out of this position. They get out of that position almost immediately, right? They were in dire straits, but they had 3 drops ready to go, and now they're out of the position. And now I'm reconsidering my life. I need to draw a green here like now. What did my opponent do here? So he starts greeting off of this orange shape, which makes a lot of sense to me. Wow. I don't know about that purple. I probably would have discarded it over here. Because he really doesn't want to destroy this shape. And he really needs to maintain access to, if not this blue, then the orange, right? But building a redundant blue trigger would probably be pretty great. Garbage arrives and makes it even worse. And because he has something in the bottom row after this clear, garbage arrives and then he just immediately dies. Sucks. And that's actually the end of the set. So this dude is quite strong. He's one of the top C ranked players. He used to be a B ranked player, but the lobby has gotten even more competitive. So it was a big accomplishment for me to win this set. And I hope that all of this really helps explain the thought process behind playing this game. It's not just about like looking at your board and finding a drop and then shooting at it. It's all about the willingness to take big risks in order to both attack and defend, and then mitigating that risk by developing good aim, good board management, and playing as fast as possible, you know? And even if you make mistakes over the course of the game, that does not preclude you from winning, because the game is actually pretty forgiving. It's got a bunch of ways for you to get back into the game. Garbage can often be quite friendly. It can turn singletons into targets. It can add to your clear. It can do all sorts of stuff to just pummel your opponent and take the game. That's going to do it for Puzzle Bobble. We're done here.